before I bring D Gunn in, I want to set this up here. You know, we talk about how people in the offseason are going to have to talk about paying Jalen Hurts. Well, look at the two different dynamics that you have in both conference title games. Brock Purdy makes $900,000. Jalen Hurts makes 1.3. Both teams have full rosters. There's no holes in them. There's not a hole in those rosters. You go over to the AFC. You got a $50 million quarterback sitting there in Patrick Mahomes and a soon-to-be $50 million. The only reason the Bengals are in that game is because he's on a rookie contract. He won't have T. Higgins. He may not have Jamar Chase. Those guys all go away. Look at what they did with Mahomes. They took away Tyreek Hill. Do you want to have the $50 million quarterback and half a roster? Or do you want to have an economically sound quarterback and a full roster? Because that's what you have in the NFC title game. Let's bring in our friend D Gunn and get his thoughts on that. Derrick, I heard you today, and I watched your show, by the way, Sports Time. You guys are spectacular. And D Gunn, I'm not saying that you look at both these quarterbacks and you're getting a little bit something here with the fact that Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy are playing MVP, and most notably Hurts, MVP ball at $1 million. That's the reason Howie was able to go out and fill all these gaps the same way John Lynch did with Christian McCaffrey going and getting a $20 million running back. Would you rather have a $50 million quarterback like Mahomes and half a roster, or would you rather have a full roster and an economically sound quarterback who can produce for you?
Well, the market shows that you're going to have to pay the quarterbacks who've earned that right. And there are teams that have figured out ways to get around salary caps. You look at a team like New England. They did it for a long time. And Brady got to a point where he would rework his contracts to help bring in other talent to keep that machine rolling. Now, unfortunately, there are quarterbacks out there that want their money. They're going to get their money, and you do what you have to do. I think when you look at a system like Kansas City's, the fact that Tyreek Hill is no longer there, and yet they're still in the AFC Championship game, and it's a pick 'em in terms of them getting back to the Super Bowl, shows you if you're in the right organization with the right structure of coaches, it can be about more of the scheme more so than the overall roster, okay? San Francisco is a prime example of that. You know, they weren't paying Jimmy Garoppolo, Aaron Rodgers money, that kind of, they were paying him good money, but they weren't paying that kind of money. But look at the roster they were able to build around. The only reason the 49ers are standing here now is because of how they constructed that roster. You know, because you don't take a rookie who's an afterthought basically off the scrap heap, put him in that situation, and the machine still rolls. You know, those are unique situations. We've seen top salaries in the NFL destroy rosters. You look at what happened with the Rams. They sold a farm. They sold their souls for that one moment of glory, and now they're paying a price for it. You know?
Derrick, don't you think the Cowboys are also in that boat too? I mean, if you look at the Dak contract, this is where I'm saying to people like this, well, wait a minute. Okay, so everybody said market price says to pay Dak Prescott. They thought they were getting Patrick Mahomes at $45 million. Well,
right.
They didn't. They didn't get – you paid him Mahomes money and not got Mahomes results, so that deal didn't work. Do you agree?
I agree with that. You know, obviously Dak has not lived up to that contract, but the only blueprint that will work in terms of rebuilding that roster or keeping a number of players. I mean, you look at the Cowboys, they've got what, like 20-something free agents now?
Absolutely. I think they're going to be worse next year than this year.
Yeah. The only way this works if Dak Prescott and his representation takes a page from the Tom Brady book. You look at Tom Brady in the latter years in New England and what he did in Tampa. He restructured his deal to get players in there to win the ring. That's the only way it's going to work. If that quarterback still sits on that $45, $50, $55 million egg nest, then the rest of the roster suffers. It has to. Because even though the cap goes up about 20, 25, 30 million a year, in a lot of cases, it's still not because Every year the cap goes up, every team has basically 8 to 12, 13 players that are coming up for free agency. You can only franchise so many players. You can only pay so many players, and then you've got to start either with the bottom basement or mediocre veterans who are just happy to get another year to prove their wealth, hopefully turn a corner and garner that into another big payday the following year, or you have to rely on your draft. And let's face it, the draft is a crapshoot. And I'm talking about the first round. Look at how many busts during the first round, as well as many success stories in the first round, and especially at the quarterback position when you're talking about drafting them. So it's a crapshoot. I think Howie Roseman is one of the best, if not the best in the business in terms of working the cap. And he learned his lesson well under Joe Banner, because Joe Banner was considered the capologist when he was running the show, when the NFL started the salary cap thing. Other teams, it's amazing. We always talk about the NFL being a copycat league, and I'm surprised other teams have not followed suit or watched more closely what the Eagles do to keep that machine at a much higher level than a mediocre to low level. But there are only a few teams in the league across the board. Kansas City's one of them. They work the cap well. You paid Patrick Mahomes, but still, you won 14 out of 17 games.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not everybody can say that. You look at what might happen with this Arizona team. The fact that Arizona gave Kyler Murray that money, there are a lot of NFL owners out there cringing at what they just did to the market in terms of quarterbacks. But you put your hands, you put your livelihood in the hands of this guy, who I think is not the consummate team leader. Body language says a lot. You look at how he pouts on the sideline, calls people out, occasionally. So I don't know if you got the right guy there, but you've got to restructure that roster. Oh, by the way, you may not have DeAndre Hopkins. You're looking at a new head coach right now. So you've got to find a way to rebuild this thing in a hurry, So it's a crapshoot. It can be done when you give a quarterback that kind of money, but it has to be done strategically and well thought out before you do it.
Before we get to Sunday's game, I want to ask you this. January 9th was the first time, according to the CBA and collective bargaining agreement, that you could start contract talks on a contract extension. Mike Brown's already pleading poverty out of the gate about, hey, you got to take less money. And I'm like, the Bengals will always be the used car salesman of the NFL for the rest of and I like Duke and I like all them guys in there,
right.
But dude, that's not how you want to start a relationship with a guy making him take a pay cut. But they addressed it there. They addressed it in Los Angeles.
Right.
Even the Dolphins said something about Tua. When do the Eagles say something about Jalen Hurts? Because he was also in that 2020 class.
Yeah.
When do you think they make it public that they started contract negotiations with Clutch? And why haven't they, D-Gun? I mean, wouldn't you want everyone to know that, hey, this is our guy. I haven't even heard them say he's the guy of the future. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying I've heard all these other people from the 2020 draft, but I've yet to hear the NovaCare Center say that.
I'm sure there's already been closed doors discussions between Jalen Hurts representation and the Eagles organization. Eagles are very strategic about when they want stuff to leak out. I'm
finding this out.
Oh, yeah. They're very close-lipped about that stuff. And I don't have a problem with that because we all know the man's going to get paid. Now, everybody's thinking he's just going to get this monster extension. Maybe. I'm leaning that way. But if they can also slap the tag on him. And what's the tag? About 30, 35, 40?
45.3.
Okay. They could slap the tag on him also,
But
I don't
Derrick,
think
would you let him go into the 2023 year making only $1.3 million without having addressed it?
Oh, heck no. Absolutely not. No, because then the relationship could become contentious, not between the coach and the player, but the front office and the player. And if he comes back and has another type of year in 2023 that he had in 2022, guess what? Where agents and front office people try to work together. You know what? If I'm his agent, you know what? You screwed us over last year. Now right back at you this year. So I think it would be in their best interest to try to get this thing taken care of now. Because he's proven himself. He's more than proven himself. He's checked every box that we had question marks about from last offseason all the way up through this season as well. There's nothing else you need to know about Jalen Hurts in terms of being a team leader, being able to run the offense, delivering all the throws they need within the structure of, Nick Sirianni's playbook, his ability to hurt you just as well with his legs, the fact that he makes few mistakes with the football, and that's huge from a quarterback perspective. Protecting the football is huge in today's game. He's answered everything you could possibly have him answer. The best thing you could do and the best business sense right now would be take care of that young man.
Agreed. I keep hearing people say this, Gunn, that Brock Purdy, he'll look like a rookie when he goes to Philly. He'll do this and that. That's not a game plan. That's wishful thinking. And I heard you say this. Man, this guy gets the ball out of his hands. They put him in a position where he's successful. They've got a lot of weapons around him. They're not asking him to sit back there for 4 seconds in a pocket. Derrick, if people think that this guy's going to melt on Sunday, he played in that Cowboy game this last week. He's 2-0 in the postseason. I think that's wishful thinking. I think you got to put a game plan together. This guy's going to play great, not sit there and melt in the frying pan.
He's only played 2 road games. He's not played a game on the East Coast. Yeah. He hasn't played a game on the East Coast. He hasn't played against a defense that has 70 quarterback sacks. And he hasn't played in the hostile environment he's about to see here in Philadelphia. And I said on the show, Dan, I said, you have to get in this young man's head early in the first quarter. You can't wait until the second or third quarter to try to figure him out. If you don't get in his head in the first quarter, he starts to settle in. And Shanahan and that crew figure out what you're doing. Guess what? Ball's coming out of his hands even faster. When you look at the array of weapons that he has at his disposal, and we've only talked about the frontline guys. You don't even talk about Ray McLeod and Jennings. They're so deep.
That kid Ayuk is good, Gunn.
Dude, I was looking extensively at film of him last night. And I came away and I told Rob Ellis and Barrett Brooks, I said, this dude runs routes like Devontae Adams. He stops on it. I'm sitting there watching him, and I knew he was a good player, but I watched how he sets up a defender. Have him think all of a sudden he's out the back door the other way. He could be a nightmare for this team. If Avonte Maddox is out on the field, I like the matchups across the board better, but you cannot shut down everything. You have to find a way to get in Brock Purdy's head. He is a rookie, yes. He hasn't played the full season, yes. But the system that Kyle Shanahan runs is quarterback friendly. How many teams do you know are down to their third quarterback on a 12-game winning streak and on the brink of getting to a Super Bowl?
I've never seen it before.
That's kudos to the organization and the structure of the offense in which they run, and the fact how they built this offense around him, which also helps alleviate a lot of pressure off of him, both on the defense and the offensive side. There's no question about that. Now, he's never been on a stage like this. I don't care how many bowl games he might have played in college. He walked in off the street playing that big game against Miami. Everybody's like looking through the Brock Purdy. Who's this? Doesn't even have a football name. Brock Purdy? Who's this dude? And he hit the ground running against Miami, which was a good team at that time, like he'd been playing all season, and he was instrumental in the Niners beating Miami, and they've been on a roll ever since. So you've got to find a way to get in this guy's head early, man. You cannot let this young man settle in.
Look at the matchups, too, Gunn. Okay, you've got Gannon versus Kyle Shanahan, and you have, on the other side, Ryans versus Steichen.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I favor the Niners there, in my opinion, because just the experience. And this is now Kyle Shanahan's third conference championship game in 4 years.
Right.
Plus, he's got the 28-0 thing still hanging over him in Atlanta. I think that's pressure on him too. But how much of a dynamic do you think that is? And what is more important of a matchup here? The coordinators going defensively against one another or offensively?
I think the offensive structure. The defense is going to take care of itself. The defense, Gannon's going to play his style of defense, whether we like it or not. And let's face it, it's been successful. DeMeco Ryans is going to play his style of defense. It's how these offenses adjust on the fly that I think will determine this game. And I have to give that advantage to Jalen Hurts based on his body of work. He had that 1 year last year, had his ups and downs last year. He got to the playoffs, took a beating against Tampa Bay, but he learned his lesson well. Obviously, he kept his notebook very, very well. He spent a lot of time in the offseason working on the little things he needed to do, whether it was getting stronger, arm strength, reading defenses, knowing what to look for across the line of scrimmage. he did all that well. Brock Purdy has never been through this situation. Brock Purdy has been instrumental in helping the Niners win 2 playoff games to get to this point. But with this game being in Philadelphia's backyard, and with Jalen Hurts, had he not lost those 2 games due to injuries, would be right there neck and neck with Patrick Mahomes for the MVP candidacy. I have to give that advantage to the Eagles. We look at what they can do on the ground. Now, 49ers run the ball well. The Eagles basically impose their will on you. They can run the football at any time, anywhere. And nobody really has been able to stop them for the most part. They went through their spell against Chicago, New Orleans, Dallas, when they didn't run the ball as efficiently as they had been. But look at what they did to the Giants. Nobody thought they would follow up a 253-yard rushing performance against the Giants, who we all thought would be a better opponent come to playoff. You threw that last game of the season out the window. They busted them for 268. So that goes to show you they can run the ball when they want to. How much are they going to run the ball? That remains to be seen. But even with that said, Shanahan and Steichen, 2 of the best offensive minds in the game. I love the way they call games. And that's going to be interesting to see who can find the creaks in the other team's armor quicker and more frequently.
2 last questions for you. I want to put you on the spot here with this O-line. And I think it's better than the 17 line. And I made this comment here. I went back and I played against, and they were teammates of mine, that Emmitt Smith O-line, Eric Williams, Tune, Gogan. I'd probably say that Nate's better than Sayamalo. I think that Landon's better than Gogan. In the center position, you have a Hall of Fame guy, first ballot, in Kelsey. Yeah. I think Ray Donaldson was good. Stebnowski was good too. But, man, I can't think of a better offensive line. I mean, it's a privilege to watch these guys play. I mean, they are earth movers. They're talented.
Yeah.
I mean, Lane's probably the best right tackle in my lifetime that I've seen play. And he's taken that distinction away from me because the right tackle is usually the number 2 tackle because the left guys always make the most money.
Right.
Am I right when I say that this line is probably, if not better, than that Emmitt Smith offensive line? And Gunn, you and I know that line, man. They won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years with those guys.
You look at the numbers they put up as an offense. I can't go that far. I can go as far to say I think this offensive line is the best offensive line and the deepest offensive line and the most versatile offensive line that I've covered in the over 25 years I've been here in Philadelphia. I'll go that far, but I can't go that far and say it was better than that particular Dallas offensive line because that was a synchronized machine. It's just like this offensive line. The difference is I like the versatility of this O-line. When you talk about the 5-man to 5-man, we can argue that all day, apples or oranges, but because of the depth and the versatility and how they can plug, prime example, Dickerson gets hurt. Andre Dillard, we're wondering why he's not playing left tackle when Lane is hurt, and you move Mailata over to the right side. They plug him in the left guard. Did you notice it?
I don't know.
Did you notice it? You think about how many offensive lines across the league, when you drop off from that first tier to the second tier, it becomes a significant weak link, and teams will expose it time and time again. That's not the case. Now, when you put Jack Driscoll on the right side, I think he's somewhat of a liability in pass protection, but he's an earth mover moving head. And the same thing I say about Mailata. Mailata, I think, is a much better run blocker than he is pass blocker. And, he was inconsistent with the pass blocking, but we don't know to what degree the shoulder was affecting his pass blocking ability. But he's been up and down in that regard. But in terms of man for man and who you can plug in at any given moment for this offensive line, yes, this is definitely the best versatile offensive line that I've covered in Philadelphia.
Finally here, I want to point this out about the coaches that have been in Philadelphia outside of the Chip Kelly experiment. So you got a coach down in Jacksonville who could be in line to win the Coach of the Year award, wins a division title, turns Trevor Lawrence back around. You got a guy in Kansas City who could potentially win another Super Bowl and has just been marvelous in what they've done. 5th straight conference championship game now, which is insanity. And now you got Sirianni. I think this speaks to the organization and identifying, hey, everyone's going to miss on a guy like Chip.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think when you dip your beak inside the college ranks sometimes, you're really gambling, Gunn. And so that's kind of what they did. They really dipped into the college ranks, and that traditionally doesn't work out, but it says a lot about the organization. Look at Joe Douglas in New York, and Andrew Berry in Cleveland, and you got Wall now, the assistant general manager. I mean, it's been the best organization in the NFC East since 2000. I mean, that's really a testament to the owner.
Oh, there's no question about it. When you think about the fact, since Jeffrey Lurie bought this team in '94, this team has made the playoffs 17 times.
That's crazy.
That tells you 17 times since he's bought this team. That tells you his commitment to excellence in his organization. And on top of that, when you look at all the outside problems that occur with players in different teams, very seldom do you see or hear in national news about an Eagles player making national headlines for the wrong reasons. Not only are they committed to excellence, but they've stayed, in all the time I've been here, they've stayed true to the commitment of bringing in high character guys. Now, you've had some guys in here that have done some things that the organization has been very good at keeping under the rug. But that's what you want to do. And some of those guys have been jettisoned out of here before it became a problem. But for the most part, you look at these guys, you look at how they carry themselves, you look at how they conduct their business. It's always like a baton. It's almost like a relay race with the Eagles organization. They identify the guys who they want to be leaders in that locker room. And by the time it's their time to depart, they have already entrenched in the minds of those who are existing or players coming in. This is how it's done here in Philadelphia. You either do it our way or you won't be here very long. And that's a great testament to what the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, has established, trickling down to Howie Roseman, Don Smolenski, and everybody associated with that organization in terms of what they've been able to do. You know, obviously the Patriots were the standard of excellence for 15 years by winning as much as they did. But the Eagles have been a very consistent organization. Have they made mistakes along the way? Absolutely. That dream team they tried to assemble with Nnamdi Asomugha didn't pan out. Jason Babin, Javon Curse just didn't pan out, But you know what? They learn their lessons and they move on. You brought up Chip Kelly. He was a wonder boy from college. Took a 4-12 team first year, 10-6, got him to the first round of the playoffs. Second year, he went 10-6 again, didn't make the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, once Chip became too big for the organization, stepped out of character, did certain things they didn't like, Jeffrey Lurie didn't let him finish out the season. He said, okay, we've seen enough, time to move on. Entered Doug Peterson, who was familiar with the organization, endorsed by Andy Reid, loved by everybody. Same thing. When Doug Peterson left, they brought in another guy, Nick Sirianni, who was like a breath of fresh air to the organization. Friendly to everybody in the building. Obviously did his homework, learned his lessons well, because he 2 years in a row, he's got his teams in the playoffs. How many coaches can say 2 years in a row, your first 2 years as a head coach in the National Football League, I'm taking my team to the playoffs?
Not many coaches.
Not many. So Jeffrey Lurie has been very good at identifying who should be the field leader of this team. When they hired Andy Reid, people were like, Andy Reid?
I know, Andy who? I look back.
Position coach from Green Bay? What are you doing? What are you doing here? All the candidates, all the experts thought that they were going to bring in here. Turned out pretty good for 14 years, didn't it?
Absolutely. I want to sneak one more in, please.
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
Last one on Hassan Reddick. And I was wrong because they figured out the Rubik's Cube, okay? And two other teams prior couldn't figure out the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
Do you think Hassan Reddick has not only been the best pass rusher since Reggie White was here, but do you think that this has been the best free agent move that the Eagles have made since T.O.?
Woo. Wow. The best free agent move since T.O. I don't know.
Sacks in 18 games.
I know, man. That's a great question, and without looking up all the stats, I mean, it would have to be up there.
Maybe Trent Cole is in there, I mean.
Well, Trent Cole, though, was a draft pick. You said acquisition.
Yeah, free agent. He's the best free agent that they've brought in since Terrell Owens.
Wow. That's a great question. I'd be hard pressed to say No. When you look at his body of work, and I love what Jonathan Gannon said a few weeks ago, had we not dropped him back in coverage so much early in the season, he probably would have had 25 sacks. That's a testament to what he did, and he continues to improve his game. The best free agent. Wow. That's a great topic for discussion, Dan. But I cannot say no, he's not. But that's something I'd have to look at a little bit closer, because the Eagles have brought in some great free agents.
They have brought in free agents. Now I'm not. I just remembered Slay's a trade. I'm just thinking free agent off the street that you signed, that you brought in, that had the impact like this. 19 sacks in 18 games, Gunn. I tried thinking about, TJ Edwards was kind of like a free agent they signed, but he hasn't had impact that this guy. He's out.
TJ was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, he was undrafted. Hassan Reddick has had as much an impact as a pass rusher as anyone I've ever seen.
Yep. I don't know. Wow. Damn, you got me. I'm very seldom on my speechless. I'm sitting there trying to quickly go through the multitude of free agents they brought in here. Nnamdi Asomugha, no. Jason Babin, Javon Curse, no. Nothing close to that.
Anybody off those McNabb teams?
No. Here's a good one. Brian Bidding just brought up a good one. Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins was a Swiss Army knife. That's a good one. Thank you. That's a very good one. See, I could argue that point. He was more than just a safety, man. He was a Swiss Army knife. He came down, played in the box,
and
he played back, and he was a hitter. And not only that, he was an unbelievably valuable teacher. If you remember the 2018 season when they were severely nicked up, it was Malcolm who was basically teaching these guys on the back end, a bunch of no-names you never heard of, guys who were bringing off the practice squad and suite and the street to play. And it got to a point where Malcolm told us in the locker room one day, he said, you know what? I finally told these guys, I'm not babysitting you anymore. It's time for you to man up. And so basically he was coaching up all these guys. But Malcolm Jenkins is a great one. If you want to compare apple to oranges, Hassan Reddick, Malcolm Jenkins. I'd say those two.
He's been a has he been the best pass rusher since Reggie?
For the Eagles?
Yeah.
If you base it on the sheer numbers, I'd have to say yes. Who else has come close to that? Yes, based on sheer numbers. Yeah, absolutely. You've had some good pass rushers here.
Oh, yeah.
But, wow.
Hugh Douglas was a great pass rusher.
Hugh Douglas, a good friend of mine. He was an excellent pass rusher. Curse had one decent season here when they brought him to Philly.
The other guy on the other side of Reggie was pretty good too. Okay,
but you said since Reggie.
Since Reggie.
So, yeah, man. I'd have to say that.
And that goes to Gannon, doesn't it, D Gunn? That he figured out how to use him. Because you and I were both going, and still to this day, I say this: he's not a great tackler.
No.
He can't really cover anybody.
No.
But that's not what they're paying him for.
He's a pure pass rusher. And the fact that he's been able – but then you know what? Look at the makeup of Hassan Reddick. To have double-digit sacks 3 consecutive years with 3 different teams, that doesn't happen because, as we know, Dan, a lot of time players that excel in one environment don't achieve the same type of success in another, i.e. Robert Quinn.
Right.
For whatever reason, Robert Quinn just doesn't fit this system. And we see it time and time again. Running backs, wide receivers, blow up numbers. If the team that the organization that drafted you, you go somewhere else, your numbers dip significantly, or you feel like you're just like that square peg you're trying to punch in a round hole, But this kid Reddick, now it took him a while. If you think about it, it took him a while to get going in this system.
About 7 games.
So I give kudos to Jonathan Gannon for figuring out how to utilize him better, and for Hassan Reddick enhancing what Gannon gave him to fit his style of play. And between the two elements emerged this guy who was one of the top sackers in the National Football League. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Okay, hey, finally here. Your
Yeah.
your guys are way too emotional, and you're the only voice of reason in the room. And
Who-
Barrett's going
my,
off the charts. I
my,
mean, Barrett, I'm watching you guys. Sports Take, by the way.
yeah.
Please make sure you guys check it out.
Uh,
Fabulous show, and it's the only sports show that I watch that I think
yeah.
is worth the shit because it's so good with these three guys.
Thank you,
The
man.
rest of them, whatever. I'm talking to people around Philadelphia. I love your show, but I Barrett wants to. Bear's chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
You got Rob pacing now.
Yeah.
And there you are going, hey, man, have a little Merlot. Go out and mow your lawn. I got a lot of things that I'm putting up. You see, I listen to you because you know why? You're balanced. The rest of us, if you're in the media, we're maniacs.
Dude, I know you won't find anybody who loves sports more than I do, but I learned a long time ago how to balance the excitement of what's to come based on finding diversions to get you to not think so much about what's to come. Dude, I got 5 adults living in my house. I got a 4-year-old demolition expert living in my house. You know, my wife's got a honey-do list for me from now until June. You know, I'm very seldom home. I got enough.
And I hear you say you got a dog like I do named Pyramid, and everyone goes, "Why did you name him Pyramid?" I go, "Because I have to pick a pyramid up every single day."
we got 3 dogs here. My son brought these 2 little dogs in here. I call rodents, and and basically my wife and I own those dogs now. And then my daughter has a 75-pound part lab something. So we have 5 adults, 3 dogs, a 4-year-old demolition expert. Do I look like I have time to just sit and wait anxiously for a game to come around? No. The game will get here when it gets here. Rob Ellis off the top of our show Sports Take today. D Gunn, we're 75 hours away. I'm like, I don't care. We're 12 hours away. Is it kickoff yet? Is it time for kick? No. Call me when it's kickoff. That's all I care about.
Hey, guys, make sure you check out the pre- and post-game show on Sunday. Derrick Gunn does such a spectacular job and one of the voices of reason in Philadelphia media. And the guy's so plugged in, and I'm so privileged he's my friend, and I thank you.
Likewise,
I'm here for you. You need anything from me.
Likewise.
Derrick, you're the only man that I have ever, and I'm not going to tell people what, but anytime you ask me for something,
right.
In my 35 years,
yeah,
you're the only person I've ever just gone, okay. I mean, the rest of them.
Thank you, man.
Oh, no. Thank you. It means more to me. And you don't have no idea what I mean by that. So, but thank you so much.
And I didn't even have to blackmail you. To get what I need, I didn't even have to blackmail you.
That's okay, man. But do one thing for me. Get
what?
Barrett Brooks open that damn book of his. Dude, he knows to more people than you and me. Let him. Dude, I can't believe he can't pick the phone up and make a call to one. Oh, that guy's my boy. I'm like, there. I go, Barrett, call the guy. You can't just have D Gunn making all the calls.
You know what he says? Man, I just don't want to owe anybody a favor. And, if I ask him to do this, then I'm going to owe them a favor. I said, hey, man, sometimes you got to give to get in life, dude. That's the way the world works.
It'll come back.
It'll
get
come
this.
back.
Here, let me leave you with this. So
yeah.
He asked me about a guy who just got hired at WIP, and he goes, Sills,
okay.
Why do you think the guy got hired? I go, well, because he politicianed for it. And he goes, and his wife's in the background going, hey, I told you that. And I go like this. I go, man, if you don't politician for him, then you're not going to get it. That guy's been on 4 or 5 shows, dude. He's not that great. You should be in. And he goes like this. He goes, man, I go, dude, you got to sell yourself a little more.
I agree. You know what? But a lot of times in our biz sales, it's timing.
It is.
And you got to have a look. And I'm not going to take it any further than that because I have a problem with that aspect of hiring and firings. In our industry, a lot of times substance has gone out the window for a look.
And so
credibility and truth. You have to know when to pick and choose those moments well,
Yeah.
But such is the beast. But, here we are still standing because you know what? We know how to beat the game. We know how to play the game.
Oh, you bet I know. Hey, we do. D Gunn, have a great Sunday. Have a great show tomorrow. I'll be watching.
You too, my brother.
Thank you so much for doing this for me and spending so much time with me. I know you're swamped with stuff, family and work. Thank you so much, my friend.
Look here, man. Anytime I can do it for you, brother, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Derrick Gunn, thank you again, please. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. All right, do me a favor. Please hit the like button. Hour number 3. That was awesome with Derrick Gunn. We so appreciate it. Keep it here on the National Football Show.